So thank you, everybody. Cheryl Jacobson, I lead Deloitte's Medtech consulting practice, and I think we have the prize for the world's longest panel name. But I think every word's important because I'm a consultant, right? So promise no Harvey balls, no 2x2s. This will be a really good discussion. The topic of this is one I'm really passionate about and I think is critical to actually achieving proper patient outcomes, which is how do providers, how do hospital systems, ASC, home health companies work with medtech companies? How do we get beyond the customer, supplier relationship? And yes, that's always going to be part of it, but how do we think about partnering differently in order to drive outcomes? And I will let each of my panelists introduce themselves briefly, and then we will dive in. I will say and I've already told them this, my requirement for a successful panel is that they disagree with each other at some point over the next 25 minutes. So you will be the judge. If we have actually gotten into the meat of these discussions, we will have points of view where we don't all see eye to eye. So judge whether or not we're successful. Afterwards, come up to me. It'll all be good. So I will let you do a quick introductions around.
Okay, great. Good afternoon. Sorry, I wanted to wake you up. Chad Lefteris. I'm the Chief Executive Officer from right around the corner here at University of California, Irvine, and the UC Health System.
Yes, good afternoon. Veronica Currio. I am the president of the medical division for 3M.
And Dave Pacitti, president of Siemens Healthineers for the Americas.
Excellent. And we will dive in. Like I said, it's a long title. So enabling human-centric, continuous, and connected care. So I'm going to start, because it's always awkward and everybody looks at each other to start. So Veronica, can you talk about what that means to you, what that means to 3M, why that's important to you?
Well, first of all, I agree with you that the title was so long that made me think a lot about what does that mean. But in principle, what that means for us is the opportunity that we have today in MedTech to expand the supplier provider relationship into something broader than that. And I think where I see the great opportunity is into the way of integrating data into a more outcome-based relationship. A relationship that looks towards improving the care of patients and that has multiple implications into not only businesses and business models that we utilize, but also our commercial transformation.
I have to ask if anybody see it differently? If not,
I disagree.
All right. Oh, a successful panel. We can drop the mic now.
I don't know what I disagree about, but you told me to disagree.
Maybe I'll just add, not to disagree yet. I'll just add that again, with on the academic side, our trainees are an important part of this, right? And so listening to what you just said, Veronica, I really think about how are we changing the way in which we're educating and training everything from medical students to nursing students to you name it, and we do all that across the UCs to make sure that we're preparing them better to live in the environment that you just described. I think that's a real opportunity as well.
Fantastic. Well then, since you still have the mic or talking mic, I'll keep on going with you. I would love to actually get your perspective because I think you are the only CEO of a hospital system brave enough to come on the stage at AdvaMed. So I would love your perspective on how have you been partnering with medtech companies in order to achieve patient outcomes?
Well, I think the definition of partnership varies. And I think I've got 6,400 and some odd vendors, and I don't need any more vendors. What I need are strategic thought partners that will work creatively, align incentives, and hopefully allow us to create something different together. And so we've been doing some of that, frankly, and we'll talk maybe later, but we started our own investment fund to help seed that differently as well, to create a different definition of partnership for us and for those partners there. So I think we're going on the mindset that if you've seen one, you've seen one, and we need to do more to create and align incentives differently so that we can truly say, yep, this is a meaningful, best-in-class partnership as we go forward.
Could you talk a little bit more about the investment fund? 'Cause I'm really intrigued by that, and maybe an example of how you've used it.
Yeah, so I think there's about 50 or so now across the country that are provider-based funds. We're the only one within the University of California leveraging our smaller scale to launch this. This is not about return first. This is about solving problems that our amazing caregivers identify at the bedside and elsewhere. And I call it right now, we're focused on reducing pajama time. If you've not heard that term, right? It's our nurses, physicians, everyone's spending way too much time tonight documenting, charting, et cetera. And that's not why they went to medical school, in case you're wondering. So how are we changing? That's a big focus for us right now, and several other investments have been made around that. So we're taking that fund and listening, and then looking for, again, potential best-in-class partners where we can change the product with our feedback and become not just an investor that writes a check, but a strategic investor that allows us to kick the tires, change the product, improve the product, and then go out to market differently based on our team's feedback at the same time. So it's been a lot of fun. It's only about 18 months in for us, and it's not about the number of investments we make or actually the direct return. Those are great, but it's about what problems have we solved, what barriers have we removed, how have we improved care, et cetera. That's really why we're doing it.
Interesting. And now I'm going to go, because I did do prep meetings so that I know each of their fascinating stories, so I will call it out. This partnership is central to your strategy, or the Siemens strategy. Can you talk a little bit about what you're doing on the end-to-end?
Absolutely. So,
Yeah.
and we work with Chad's team as well. And he's right. There's different definitions of partnership, and sometimes there's a willingness, how much someone wants to partner. And I think also you have to get comfortable with one another, right? And have to be also become a little bit vulnerable to learn how to work with one another. So my expectation, say with Chad's team, is we get better and better as we get to know each other better. But as we think about the partnerships we have, we really are focused on addressing the pain points of an institution. We don't want to say we have a playbook and here's the playbook for our partnership. We want the customer to say, and I've had that conversation with Chad, tell us where your pain points are, and we'll be honest and tell you if we can help you or not. So examples would be, the last couple of years we've been dealing with workforce issues. Chad could talk about it better than I could, but nurses, techs, and pretty much doctors across the spectrum at a hospital. And we have been working very innovatively with institutions and try to address those shortages. Some of it's through technology, especially AI, trying to do more with less. But some of it's very much grassroots, starting new tech schools, starting radiology tech schools, going into the high schools and talking to kids about careers in healthcare, working with the Urban League in certain cities, and having them recruit people who want to get into healthcare. A lot of times, people in underserved communities don't even know about the great opportunities to work in healthcare. So we've spent a lot of time in that area. It's changing fast. There's always a trend right now, hospital. If I talk to a lot of people like Chad, they'll talk to me about hospital at home, how we could do more with keeping the patient home. And now we're spending a lot of time in that area as well.
Well, and that's a really nice tee up. So I was going to talk about, there was a lot of discussion over the last day or so on the shifting sites of care. So hospital and home and ASCs, and I'd love to talk about that. How does that represent new, I'm going to call it new opportunities or new challenges to work together? Because it's not always big hospital systems that are driving the hospital at home or driving the ASC. So would love your perspective on opportunities, challenges for that.
Yeah, I think that's the area where we have probably explored and where we have currently the most work done. And really the biggest challenge is that, and we've talked a little bit about this in earlier discussions, is that the focus is not on necessarily technology, but more related to business model innovation. It creates a different level of opportunity to develop things in the areas of service, in the areas of education, in the areas of data operations that I don't think have been typically areas where Medtech has been playing in the past. So I believe that there is, when you were talking earlier about the opportunities that exist to take that relationship to a new level, especially in the side of care, there's a lot of opportunity to build a different level of relationship.
I would love to hear an illustration of that, given if you guys are partnering together, like what does a partnership in a hospital at home or with an agency look like, and how is that different?
Well, maybe I go first, because so first of all, every hospital has a different definition when they're talking about a hospital at home, right? Very different approaches to it, and I think it's still in its very much learning stages. But we've spent a ton of time on this topic. An example: I was in Florida, and a health system there is using paramedics as really the treatment vehicle, so to speak, to take care of patients that would be in an ICU potentially, and they're advanced trained paramedics, right? But they have a command center at their health system, and there's all the nurses at the health system constantly monitoring these patients. So let's say at any one time they may have 50 patients that would be normally at the hospital, but now they're at home. They're getting their fluids at home. They're getting diagnostic tests. They're getting ultrasounds at home. And a lot of their care is being done there. But there is a command center back at the mothership, so to speak, that with advanced clinical specialists that are working with those paramedics. People are looking at wearable technologies, different types of monitoring technologies, putting cameras in the home. Right? But the whole goal is, and I still think there's some reimbursement topics that have to be worked out that Chad's more of an expert than I am. However, the concept of being able to do more at a home setting could be potentially very beneficial in managing some of the challenges at a health system. I'll let Chad pick it up from there.
Yeah, I was looking for something to disagree with in that, but I actually, I was going to talk about reimbursement in our next 18 minutes and put everybody to sleep. But the fact is that is a real barrier, right? And I'll just say I came from North Carolina. I've been in California now about 4.5, 5 years. And I used to think that everything moved from the west to the east, but that's not true. And in fact, the Department of Public Health here, at least in Orange County and really for the state, they haven't yet defined what is care in the home. We're actually working to write the book for the local agency here through UCI Health. And it's not just monitoring, and it's not right. And so what does that mean has to be confirmed, and then reimbursement methodology has to follow. So I think that's a real issue that we're working. And the other side of this coin is that we're under construction right now. As Christian reminded me, we're under construction right now with $1 billion new campus. That's a B. I sound like Austin Powers when I say that. You all, cost of construction in California is crazy, but that's the reality here. And we're full every day. And we're doing this. And we're doing care at home differently. And we're pushing more to the other. So we're building a giant ICU with 145 beds, really. Yep. Because we know that anything else is going to be in the home or in an ASC or some other level of care outside the four walls of a traditional hospital.
And maybe just to add about other alternate sites of care. I mean, there's a lot in the outpatient space and ASCs, as you mentioned, and I think there's a lot of ways to go about that, and institutions are doing it differently. There's joint ventures with companies like us. In our example, we can help build them, we can help plan them, we can man them with people as well, and do some kind of collaboration or different permutations of that, right, along the way. I just had my knee replaced 6 months ago at an ASC, right, and it's a great way to go, right? I mean, you can get that kind of procedure. You got there at 7 in the morning and you're home at 4 in the afternoon, and they give you all your care instructions. I mean, and it really helps, I think, address some of the cost challenges if it were done inpatient, so to speak. So this is an evolving topic. The hospital at home, alternate sites of care. You have in some states, you have cath labs being built as outpatient center. There's a cardiac cath lab on Wall Street right now, if you can believe, and you can imagine why. But there is one, right? So, as an example.
The Wall Street Journal article said the lawyers are making more than the bankers, so it's probably for the lawyers too on that one.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I'd love to talk about the barriers to true partnership and some of the pieces, and I'm going to seed it with I actually suspect some of the data components of it. I suspect, okay, well, how do you really measure the outcomes? I realize I'm leading the witness, but maybe you can argue with me as part of our point of disagreement. But I'd love to hear, what are some of the barriers that you find to partnering with each other?
I think the first one that I can call, and you already mentioned it, is more related to the openness to leverage data and clinical data to build a relationship more towards outcome. I think there is a challenge there. I think in the past, the systems that have existed don't, I don't know if it doesn't allow it, but have not been designed in that way. And I think that requires a change to really drive a different level of relationship. That's at least for the outcome-based model. I think there is obviously a barrier that, and we've talked a little bit about that, taking new relationships that in the past have been mainly a product supplier type of relationship, knocks the door of reimbursement as well. And that sometimes a scare about the work that has been done or can be done from a partnership perspective. Is that going to be stopped because of not having the ability to really drive that level of reimbursement? But I would say for me, the first one is data.
So maybe I'll chime in, maybe not fully agree. How's that? And we have some of our digital team here that works with data all the time. So as you can imagine, if you're a large, we're a large imaging and diagnostics company. We do radiation therapy, and we sit on reams of data, right? And we are finding better ways to collaborate with institutions and how we share data. It's their data, right? But we find ways, and how we can make it useful is the most important thing. Look at all the information they have on their EMRs, right? But one of the things that Chad and team will tell you struggle is how do you make that useful and how do you make it efficient and effective and improve patient outcomes? Because now you have an AI company popping up every day telling them they have some new tool, right? So I think we're finding ways to work through that. I mean, the lawyers get involved. So you talked about the lawyers earlier, and you have to work through a lot of that. But there are some good examples that's starting to happen. But they're happening in small instances and not really across a health system, so to speak. And I think that's the opportunity for improvement that we can do from a data standpoint.
Is it because like when you say health systems, you mean like across a large health system or across multiple health systems?
Or just
It's
even
so
one large health
fragmented.
system.
Let's take
UCI as an example, just going across UCI. I think the other barrier for me, as I mentioned in the beginning, it really is, when you talk about partnership, it really is getting comfortable, because if you're going to really push each other, you're going to make each other uncomfortable, right? And that's not, when you're a vendor and a healthcare provider, that hasn't happened a lot, right? You're really trying to push each other to make each other better. And I've had some of those conversations with Chad, and we have to get better at that. But it may sound a little soft, but it's true, right? You have to get comfortable with pushing each other and being a little bit vulnerable. I mean, we can't help unless we know what the pain points are. And that means sort of opening up your dirty laundry and walking through those pain points, right? And then we have to be honest and say if we could help or not.
And I have to ask, because I'm talking about partnership, but I can't, I'm going to deny the commercial relationship. Like outside of partnership, there is still a vendor relationship in some instances. How does that work? Are there points of conflict sometimes, not points? How do you work through the two relationships?
Yeah, I mean, look, when we partner with someone, we're partnering in multiple ways. There's a commercial piece of it. There also could be a collaboration around R&D work and clinical research. There could be efforts around risk sharing and signing up for performance innovation, helping them, with KPIs that we say we're going to help them get to. And they do sometimes conflict with one another. And what we've learned is we need some type of governance process to oversee it, and where we have the hospital executives and a company, in our case Siemens executive, work together and work through those conflicts and work towards those goals that we've set we're going to do. When we sign up for a partnership, we say, look, this is what we're going to do for one another. And we give ourselves KPIs, and we hold our hands and say we're going to work through them.
I think that's a really excellent way to frame it. And I would just last week we were having a similar discussion in a different space, just like what you're saying, David, around really understanding where else are we connecting, or is there potential to connect? In this case, there was already a little bit of connecting tissues, but not enough yet. And so making sure that we understand that, because I think that's a huge leverage point for both parties to define that and to realign perhaps differently and really make something that's uniquely different than what we've done before. I think it's well said.
The other area I'd love to explore, and then I will open it up in just a couple minutes for questions, so just prep in. And I haven't been able to get them to disagree, so I'm really hoping one of your questions will get them to disagree. So just, otherwise I've failed, and they won't let me out. I haven't met again, it's all going to be bad. I would love to talk about one of the challenges I see, and why I probed on your side, is you were talking about like within a hospital system and the variability on it. One of the things that when I've been talking to clients, the challenge is the EMR systems are totally different. If you're trying to integrate it all with the IT systems or data, so if part of your partnership, whether it be an R&D partnership or a service partnership, includes the sharing of data or the connectivity to an IT component of it, just the variety across a very fragmented healthcare system in the US just makes it really challenging to be able to do anything at scale, because the implementation has to be so specific to that particular site. Is that fair? Is that overblown? What's your perspective on that? If your data includes some kind of connectivity, again, R&D, partnership, whatever, is just like a challenge due to fragmentation.
I'm a little bit more optimistic than you are,
Yeah.
so.
That might be a life statement, but really nice to know you. Yeah.
Well, I'm a sales guy by trade, so look, there's all sorts of challenges with data, right? And like I said, we have a whole team here that knows it way better than I do. But I and it's different in different businesses. There's medical products or medical devices. We sit with big iron, right? Which is the equipment we have is inherently collecting data all the time. We're taking images, we're collecting blood samples, we're doing all, we're doing a lot that might be different than putting a device in someone, right? So in our case, we have to get very comfortable in working someone with sharing of data. We have cloud systems sitting over top of everything, and some of that is for service purposes, but some of that you could use that data for other things, right? And ultimately, we want to do is improve outcomes, but also take out where there's deviations from a cost perspective, right? I'll give you an example. So there's an MRI at Chad's Hospital, but they're using 10 different protocols for the same type of study, and that takes time, right? So if they standardize the protocol, say for a lumbar spine, I got a bad back, I'm an ex-football player, and they standardize it, they could, first of all, maybe potentially get more consistent results, and also do more scans per day, as an example, right? That's an easy example, but we could find all that out because we sit on top of all that data, and we could sit down with Chad and his team and say, hey, look, these are the observations we made over the last 3 months, and here's some things we could do to change it. So, can we get everywhere we want with the data? Maybe not, but we have some good examples where it works.
I think one element is the how you utilize the data. The other part is really what is the architecture of data that could be utilized in building a partnership. And I think we have a ton of opportunities to have interactions with clinicians, and when we talk about data and data that they believe to really make decisions, we get a lot of different answers. Is it really relevant for them in that level of partnership to utilize data that came from our own organization? At what is the data sources that are utilized to drive that level of partnership to the next level is something I think important to consider. So it's openness, but also the architecture of what data will be utilized to develop that level of partnership.
I'll just add that as the provider here, we think it's all our data. And so that's part of the struggle. And I admit that. And so I think we're getting better at that, though, moving beyond that, frankly, because of the opportunity that you just described, both just described. And so, but to your point, it will vary across systems, facilities, et cetera. That is the challenge, for sure.
Right. I have a few more questions, but I'd love if anybody... You'll have to speak up so we can hear, and I'll play it back. But any questions for our panelists? Wait. Oh, no. I think he was saying yes to something else very loudly, so it wasn't for us. Anything? All right. I'll keep on going. Oh, wait. Do you? You may have to repeat. Sorry,
Okay.
I was going to play back. But
You go into a hospital, between the hospital, the doctors, and our equipment, You expect to be able to get everything you need. I think there needs to be more cooperation between us. And this is the first time I've even seen a hospital up on stage with us here. And it needs to be expanded. I mean, we're partners and we all have challenges. I hope, is there more and more cooperation? Is that what really we're seeing? Okay, thank you.
I believe so.
I think that is really, you're hitting on it. So, to be honest, when I got asked to do this, I'm like, why would they want to hear from me? Right? Well, we've already defined that. So I think, to be honest, it should be completely seamless to the patient. They should just assume, and they probably already do, that we're doing this. So we've got some work to do, frankly.
And I would follow what you said. I think when a patient goes to a hospital, they expect to have the best care. And if there are opportunities through the partnership between the Medtech and providers to drive a smarter care, a more safer care, definitely there is an opportunity for us to take this level of relationship to a new level. That's at least how I view it.
Well, one, I want to say thank you for joining us. We hope that won't be your last time, Aaron. And next time, I'd love to do something where we also have payers, because I actually think it's the three, to hit your point about reimbursement and partnership and how do we actually play together and actually really address patient outcomes as a ecosystem and industry. But a couple of things that I love, because I'm a big fan of sound bites. My background is marketing too, not sales, but marketing on the side. Is I love your point about you don't need another vendor. And your goal is to help reduce the pajama time and to drive patient outcomes. And anything that you can do as you think about partnerships and working together that help enable those two things, then it seems like kind of a willingness to talk and to collaborate and to address the outcomes together. So that's our challenge as Medtech, is how do we reduce pajama time and folks working in pajama time, which I think is a very good call to action for all of us. So thank you again, appreciate it. And enjoy the rest of AdvaMed. And thank you to AdvaMed for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon.